If you're a parent in California and you're fed up with the direction of where the state has been heading over the past decade or so, and you're looking for a better environment in which to raise your kids, in this video, I'm gonna dive into the state of Idaho and whether or not it might make sense for you to make the move to Idaho, or it could be some other state, but I moved to Idaho from California for probably a lot of the same reasons why you're considering making the move here. I moved from San Diego. People thought I was crazy. People thought, why would you ever leave the best weather in the nation? That was probably the hardest reason to leave, but all these other reasons were certainly motivating factors and why I decided to ultimately make the move to Idaho. I'm gonna tell you a little story about a client of mine that moved from California to Idaho. One day he came to me, he said, Curtis, did I ever tell you the reason I really moved to Idaho? And I said, no, you didn't actually tell me what that reason was. And he said, well, let me tell you what happened. So his granddaughter was having some issues at school. They weren't really sure what was going on, but basically she was having some fainting spells. And it turns out that she was getting very dehydrated. Now she ran track, cross-country track. And they're like, hey, you gotta drink more water. What is the deal? Why are you not drinking enough water? She said, I don't drink water at school. So they told her, hey, you gotta be drinking water at school. Why aren't you drinking water during school? You're getting super dehydrated, you're passing out, all kinds of problems occurring from that. And she said, the reason I don't drink water at school is because if I drink water at school, I then have to use the bathroom, and you can probably see where this is going. And if I use the bathroom at school, there are boys in the girls' bathrooms that are allowed to be in there because of their gender identity. And so rather than having to put up with sharing a bathroom with another boy and exposing herself to that, she decided it was better for herself to simply not drink water. This was an 8th grader. This was a 13-year-old girl having to make that kind of decision at such a young age. Now in California, there was a recent petition going on that did not gather enough signatures to make it on the ballot, but this would have required schools and teachers to let parents know if their child was identifying as another sex at school. So if a girl was identified as a boy or vice versa, preferred pronouns, different names, this would be a requirement that schools would now have to disclose that to parents. It's a parents' rights situation. However, that did not gather enough signatures to even make it on the ballot. And if it had made it on the ballot, the Attorney General in California was going to label it as a bill that was an attack on transgender rights. It was to restrict transgender rights rather than parental rights. So that didn't even make it to the ballot box because it couldn't get enough signatures. There were not enough people in California willing to sign for that to get it on the ballot. Now there's another measure advancing right now in the California legislature. It is most likely going to get signed, and it's designed to protect teachers from essentially being sued for concealing this kind of information from parents in California. So this kind of thing just goes on and on and on in California, and it certainly was a reason why I moved out of San Diego, because I could see the direction of where the state was going. Now we're homeschooling our kids, so we're somewhat protected from that anyway, but not everyone has the option or luxury to be able to homeschool their kids. It's a big sacrifice, of course. It requires a parent to really focus on that. Usually one parent can't work, so it's very difficult. So a lot of folks do have to send their children to private or oftentimes public schools to make ends meet, of course. So that's why if you're looking to make the move out of California and you're looking to move to a place like Idaho, the school systems are certainly a lot better here in Idaho. And I'm gonna go into some of the protections that you have if you're looking to make the move here to Idaho. Now, of course, California has determined that it is a transgender sanctuary state. And on another hot button topic, it's also an abortion sanctuary state. They're actively advertising for abortions in California, using your hard-earned tax money to advertise and promote themselves as transgender sanctuary, abortion sanctuary, providing all kinds of services at your expense. So that was the reason that I moved out, was because I no longer wanted my tax dollars to go and directly support these kinds of things. Now, of course, on the federal level, there's not a whole lot you can do except, of course, through your representatives. But when these things are rolling down on the state-by-state level, you can either stand and fight, which is certainly a noble cause, or you can decide to move to another state where your tax dollars are not going to those kinds of things. Personally, even though there's a lot of conservatives still in California, I have felt like the battle is essentially over in California, and I wanted to move to a state where I felt like I was winning, and we actually are winning in Idaho. So let's go over a few things in Idaho that, in my opinion, are super positives. People will probably rip me apart in the comments and calls me all kinds of names. However, let's start first with some of the transgender ideology going on here. And first up is that there is a bill that has advanced. In fact, there's 2 bills actually in place right now, and one is a bathroom bill. So that goes back to my story of my client that moved here because of his granddaughter. In Idaho, your sex, your actual biological sex, is the type of bathroom that you have to use and need to use. You cannot simply identify as one or the other. This is in the school system. So your children are going to be protected from that, from boys wanting to be girls or girls wanting to be boys. But let's be clear, the protection needs to be for girls from boys wanting to be girls. I actually recently was at a farmer's market. This is in Nampa. Nampa is, considered conservative for the most part. However, this ideology is everywhere. And I was walking by a booth and there was someone running for the state legislature here. She asked me if I'm a voter in Nampa. I said, yes, I'm a voter in Nampa. I started talking with her. She said that I'm running because I'm tired of the legislature using our children to fight their culture wars. And I was like, what do you mean by that exactly? She's like, well, they're too focused on, if a girl wants to use a boy's bathroom. She told me that. And I said, oh, you mean protecting our children? And I point to my 6-year-old daughter like her. And she told me the wildest thing. She said, girls don't need to be protected from things like that. I'm like, look, thank you for telling me where you stand, and I'm not going to be voting for you. I will be voting against you. So right now we do have a bill in place that protects children in public schools using the bathrooms. And also there is a bill in place that is protecting children from transgender surgeries, puberty blockers, hormones, etc. So those things cannot be sold or taken or prescribed in the state of Idaho right now. It doesn't mean, of course, that children aren't unfortunately going outside of the state of Idaho for that, but there are laws in place that are helping to protect people from that. Now, ultimately, it is a heart issue. You're not going to solve any of these problems through legislation. It really comes down to the person's heart and not buying into these kinds of things. The other thing with abortion is that we do have a 6-week heartbeat bill in place. So if a heartbeat is detected, which is typically around the 6-week mark, then you cannot abort the child. That means no chemical abortions and no live abortions either. Again, let's be clear, this is killing a child in the womb. Let's call it what it is. We use all these euphemisms about reproductive care and abortion, but let's face it, it is actually murder. And I'm not here saying that people don't make a decision and it's extremely difficult. And I'm not out here advocating that women who have had abortion should be thrown in jail. However, I think the doctors that are performing these should probably be thrown in jail. But again, this comes down to a heart issue. And we really got to change people's hearts and minds. However, there are some basic protections that we can put in place that are in place here in Idaho to protect the unborn child and to protect our youth. These are two of the major reasons why people are flooding into Idaho, because they want these protections in place. They want a better place to raise their children, and they don't want their children actively exposed to these kinds of things. Now, of course, children can be exposed to many of these things through social media. I definitely encourage everyone to be very, very careful on social media for your own mind, but also for your children's mind as well. My children are young, so I'm still growing into that, and we'll see how that evolves, of course, for me. But those are certainly some of the biggest reasons why I moved to Idaho and why so many people that I see moving here to Idaho. And I want to touch on that briefly because a lot of people think that anyone moving from California is simply a liberal and they're going to destroy the state that they're moving to. You are seeing, from what I've heard anyway, that in certain states, potentially like Texas and Tennessee, that they're turning more purple. Personally, I don't think that's because of the Californians moving there. I think that's because of the migration patterns that are happening. Now, those people are not voting here. The people are illegally crossing the border. However, it does play into how many House of Representatives seats did you get. I think this is a big reason why California is holding on to so many seats, despite losing, I think it was 500,000 people last year. They have all these undocumented or illegal immigrants that are keeping their overall population counts up, even though their citizenship count is going down. Now, in the last federal election cycle in 2022, the state actually shifted about 5 or 6% more conservative. And there's a recent study that came out from the state of Idaho, because they're tracking who's moving in here, how are they registering, generally Democrat or Republican. 75% of people that moved from California into Idaho were registered as Republican. 10% registered as Democrat, and the other 15% were essentially undisclosed. They couldn't track it somehow. And again, you're seeing this kind of shift towards a more conservative policy. In fact, in this very last election cycle in 2024, there were a lot of Republicans that got primaried out of the state legislature, basically because they were rhinos and they were replaced by more conservative people looking to fight the good fight. Now, if you are looking to make the move to Idaho and you're looking to protect your kids or maybe your grandchildren from some of the things that I talked about in this video, I am a local real estate agent and I do help people make the move here all the time, especially from California. That's my bread and butter, helping Californians make the move up here to Idaho, and I absolutely love it. I help people all the time, just like you and you and you and you and you. And all you got to do is reach out to me via phone, text, or email, and we'll set up a Zoom call we can set up a consultation going over the timelines and the process for you to actually make the move here to Idaho. Some people are ready to move right now. Other people are a little ways out. If you're looking to build a home, you need to plan in about 9 months or so for that move. So even if you're out looking to buy a new construction home, it's best to start planning now so we can make that smooth transition. I can help you figure out how to sell your home, buy here, all the different loans available, or if you're buying cash, whatever it might be for your situation. And if you're looking to dive in and learn more about the Treasure Valley, things to do here, places to live, the types of homes you can buy here, pros and cons, that kind of thing, all you gotta do is watch this video here. We dive in deeper, and I'll see you on the next video.